Oh, we're joined now from Philadelphia by George Ciccariello-Maher. He's an assistant professor at Drexel University and analyzes Latin American social movements. Good to have you with us. First of all, what is supposed to happen according to the Constitution? Is it clear if Chavez isn't well enough for the inauguration on January the 10th?
Well, that's not clear at all, actually. If Chavez cannot be inaugurated at all, of course, then there would need to be new elections. But the reality is there's a gray area in the Constitution, as there is in all constitutions, with regard to the actual date of the inauguration and what can happen if that date cannot be met. For example, can the National Assembly delay that date? This is the question that people are grappling with in Venezuela right now.
All right, so as they grapple with that, what do you think is actually likely to happen if he can't be inaugurated? Who takes over? Who runs the country?
I think that depends in reality on what the state of Chavez's actual health is. If he's well enough to be inaugurated within a few weeks, for example, I believe the National Assembly is fully empowered to declare a temporary absence and to delay this inauguration. If, however, that Chavez is not actually well enough to even be inaugurated, then there's actually no way to provide for any kind of transition outside of new elections, which would entail the President of the National Assembly taking over for the interim period.
Well, what are the options in front of the opposition in all of this? I assume they want to go to early elections.
The reality is the opposition, if the Venezuelan opposition is good at one thing, it's overplaying their hand, and this is what they're doing right now. We should bear in mind this is an opposition that is a minority in the National Assembly, a minority in terms of state governorships, a minority in municipalities, and is out there acting as though they can make demands of the government in this way. The reality is the opposition is demanding the right to go to Cuba to check on Chavez's health, but the only institution in the country that has any right to do that is the Supreme Court. This is an opposition that is in no position to make any kind of demands. Now, with regard to what they would like, they're itching for any kind of election that might give them a chance of winning. And this is because they were closer than they ever have been in October in the election between Enrique Capriles and Chavez. In reality, this was not a close election, however. Chavez won by nearly 12 percentage points. And so the reality is actually, despite the fact that the opposition is pushing for the earliest elections, I believe that there's no question that Nicolas Maduro, that Chavez's named successor, would easily defeat the opposition were an election held this month.
Now, it's also interesting to note the Vice President saying the US is managing a manipulation of the situation. Does Washington see an opportunity here to perhaps undermine the Chavez cause? What role do you think the US is playing?
Certainly. I mean, there's one fact, which is that since Obama has come to power, nothing has changed. What has become obvious is that actually more funding has been sent to these Venezuelan opposition groups. And the U.S. ambassador has recently admitted that there has been contact with a variety of groups, as she put it, across the political horizon. Of course, this contact is with the variety of opposition groups. And it became such a question that the U.S. had to come out recently and insist that they are not managing what they call the Made in the USA transition, and that everything needs to happen according to the Constitution. Of course, given the claims that the opposition is making with regard to the gray area in the Constitution, there's still certainly plenty of leeway for the opposition to try to make a play, to try to endorse what has been called a constitutional coup or a soft coup or a sort of coup through certain institutional powers, as we've seen in other countries recently.
All right, thanks so much for your thoughts on that, George Ciccariello-Maher.